Hello and welcome back to the Extra Time Talk podcast. I'm your host, Shiven Mohindra, and joined by me today we have three very special guests, Kishan, George, and Steen. How are you, lads?
Good. Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all well, thanks, George. Kishan, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. So I'm Kishan Patel. I write for Last Word on Football, and I support Manchester United, but I'm also interested in all things football in general.
Nice.
I'm George Pavlou. I work for, I'm the editor for ETT, ExtraTime Talk. I'm normally a regular on this podcast, but I haven't been in the last couple of months, so good to be back.
Yeah, excellent. Steen, a new face to the podcast.
And I'm Steen Kirby. I participate on a variety of law-based sites, including tennis and football. So that's who I am.
Nice. Steen actually publishes daily predictions on the World Cup at Last Word on Football, so be sure to check them out. Steen does a great job with that, and he gets other members of the Last Word on Sports community to help share their opinion. In today's episode, we'll be reviewing the group stage of the FIFA World Cup 2018. And what a World Cup we've had so far, lads. Some great football, great drama, all till the very end. We've just kicked off with the knockout round, so we'll be previewing that for you as well. First World Cup with the use of the video assistant referee, VAR. We'll be giving our take on that as well in today's episode. So let's start, Kishan. What's been your favorite moment of the group stage? Let's say favorite match to start off with, and why?
Oh, there's been so many. I think everyone's go-to match would be the Spain-Portugal match.
Yeah.
What a match that was. I mean, you saw Ronaldo stepping up, taking that free kick, and you just knew it was going to hit the back of the net, didn't you? And remember Nacho's goal as well, that arrow-like goal from outside the box onto the post and in. Just a thrilling game and kind of why we all love football, isn't it? So for me, that's probably the match of the group stages so far. But there's also some lesser well-known games, like I think Colombia played a few games that were really interesting as well. They really showed their creative side. And that group in general, Group H, was pretty tight. So, yeah, that's what I was looking out for the most in the group stages.
Nice one. George, how about you? Favorite game, favorite moment in the group stage so far?
Well, I think most people's favourite game over here would be England-Panama, wouldn't it? I remember I was on the way back from Swansea at the time, so I was listening to the first half in the car, and I just couldn't believe it. Obviously the Tunisia game as well, with the last-minute goal from Harry Kane was great as an England fan. But I really liked the France-Argentina game yesterday as well. That was a great game.
Yeah, definitely.
I was expecting France to kind of walk over all Argentina, and they did kind of, but Argentina did hit back, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, that's about it for me, really.
If you could put your finger on a specific group stage game, what would you have to say? One game you could relive.
Other than the England game, I didn't watch the Portugal-Spain game either. I was out then as well. I missed all the good games. But I did enjoy watching Mexico beat Germany, I will say, from a biased perspective again. But even though it wasn't the greatest game in the world, that was quite a fun game for me to watch.
Nice one. Steen, how about you? What would you say has been your favorite group game?
Well, I would definitely say for the game, I'll throw in a nomination for Serbia and Switzerland. That was just a really back and forth game. Serbia got a pretty early goal and looked like they were going to continue on in a game that probably if they'd won it they would have qualified for the knockouts. But then two of the immigrant players who both had Balkan ancestry for Switzerland actually came back. They scored twice, including a pretty late goal to actually put Switzerland through. And of course, in hindsight, they qualified out of their group along with Brazil because of that game. So I just thought the emotion of it and just the meaning of it, I thought was really exciting.
Yeah. Nice. Personally, I'd have to give a shout out to Brazil versus Costa Rica, the 2-0 late goals from Coutinho and Neymar. I thought that was a great game. Really tense, and I thought Costa Rica would actually hold out and share the points with Brazil. But just the talent and their upper class of players came through, and we saw the quality displayed through Coutinho, and felt really happy for Neymar to get his World Cup goal this year as well.
Absolutely, and I really thought for the group beyond the Group H, which was just so competitive with the four teams, I thought that the group with Iran and Spain and Morocco and Portugal was actually just really interesting because instead of it being a complete walkover for the two, dominant European sides, actually Iran and Morocco were pretty competitive and really, tested those two teams and tested each other to an extent as well. And frankly, it's a shame neither one of them could actually qualify out of the group.
Yeah, good shout. I think they put up very valiant efforts in both their games against the European giants. Yeah, it was a shame that not one of them could progress to the knockouts. I'd also have to give a shout out to the South Korea versus Germany game. Again, as an England fan, nothing made me happier than seeing Germany get knocked out. And I thought it was Heung-min Son did give it his all throughout all three group games. It was a shame that his team couldn't, meet his level that he was playing at. But for him to have a great game against Germany and to get, a consolation 3 points and a very historic moment for both sides was quite remarkable. And I actually wasn't even close to thinking that Korea would come close to beating Germany.
Yeah, I missed that game as well. So I've missed way too many games, World Cup games. All the ones I missed are the good ones, which is a shame.
Yeah, that is true.
I did see that one. The last minute, the run that Son made in the very last minute against Germany was really excellent. Yeah. I mean, people say that was just a tap-in, but you have to make that run to make that opportunity for yourself.
Of course.
So super, super thrilling at the end there. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to some standout either performances or players that have been consistent throughout all three games, or whether it was just one performance. Who would we give some nominations and shout-outs to here? Steen, would you like to start off?
Yeah, I'll give a shout-out to Romelu Lukaku, striker from Belgium. A lot of people prior to the World Cup had kind of criticized his performances at the national team level. And he's had an amazing tournament and frankly helped them win the group. I can't count. I think he's had 4 or 5 goals, but he's just been really dominant and completely overpowering all the defenders he's faced so far.
Yeah, right. He has been. George, who would you say has been your sort of standout dark horse type of player?
Well, I've really liked Cavani so far from Uruguay. I mean, obviously, Suarez is sort of the main headline of their team, and he's done good as well. But I mean, Cavani got both goals for them yesterday to beat Portugal. And I just think I've always liked him a lot as a striker. I thought he's quite underrated personally, and I think he's showing what he can do here for, quite an underrated Uruguay team. I think. I don't know if they can. I don't think they'll be able to win the thing, but I certainly think they can reach the semi-finals. France aren't looking the strongest at the minute, so they could definitely get something against them.
Yeah.
And obviously, the obvious one I suppose I should talk about as an England fan is Harry Kane. He's the top scorer of the tournament so far.
Yeah.
It's good. He hasn't really, up until now, he hadn't really shown what he could do on the international stage. He had a disappointing Euros.
Yeah.
Obviously he scored goals, in qualification matches and friendlies, but they were against much lesser teams, a lot of them. So it's good to see that he can pull out the stage in the World Cup. And if we can make it to the quarterfinals or the semi-finals, he might even win the Golden Boot. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully. Kishan, you?
Yeah, I have a couple. I think Coutinho has been pretty good. It's quite a great curling effort in Brazil's first match, I believe, and always seems to be linking up the play. Whenever Firmino comes on, he seems to link up well with Firmino. So definitely he's been one of them. I'd say, Pogba's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'd say that he's had some good moments. Perhaps he's not been at his 100% best, but he's definitely created some in the matches where France has had some tight games. It's been like he'll slide a ball in for someone, and that'll eventually lead to a goal. He hasn't been, scoring 40-yard screamers, but he will. He has been an engine in that midfield alongside Conte. So he's had an okay World Cup so far.
Yeah. I'd like to give a shout out here to Colombia's Juan Quintero, a young attacking player who's been extremely creative on set pieces with some excellent deliveries. Sort of like the James Rodriguez of 4 years ago, I think. Been extremely fast and crafty along the wing as well as cutting in, being able to play that final pass. And that excellent free kick against Japan had the presence of mind just to put it low, kind of duke out the keeper a little bit, roll it into the bottom right corner. I thought that was excellent, especially from such a young talent. I'd also have to give credits to Muslera, the Uruguayan keeper. Not conceded a goal in all 3 group games, conceded his first last night. But I think he's been excellent. Again, like George said, fairly underrated Uruguay side here. Muslera has been able to keep 3 clean sheets on the international stage, which is very commendable. Harry Kane, of course. I think N'Golo Kante, 2 out of 3 man of the matches in his first 3 group games. He's, again, been at his usual self. I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit, Kishan, on Pogba. I think the best way to describe it is he has had moments of brilliance, but very limited moments, really. And even against Argentina last night in their 4-3 win, he had moments of good bits, but he was turning the ball over too often. He was playing the wrong ball. His decision-making's been a bit dodgy. Long ball's been a bit dodgy. But, he does have that sort of creative spark and that inner natural-born talent that he has, which allows him to prove like an engine in that midfield. But I think Kante's been the, again, unsung hero in that midfield, really just controlling the tempo of the play, winning every ball back, not being scared to lunge into tackles. He's been great. Any other shout-outs in terms of players specifically?
Well, I was going to say, in terms of, you mentioned Quintero, I've seen, this is slightly off topic, but I've seen rumours online that he's been so good, Spurs are actually looking at signing him, so we might see him in the Premier League soon enough. So that shows how good a tournament he's had so far.
Oh, right, yeah. Definitely, thanks for that.
It's just rumours, but it shows.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about attacking players, but I thought N'Golo Kante for France, the holding midfielder, has been really, he hasn't necessarily been exciting, but he's been very effective at controlling play for France. And then also Diego Godin yesterday for Uruguay.
Yeah.
He's had a fantastic tournament. They had the best defense of any team in the group stages. And then yesterday, I thought he did a really nice job containing the Portugal attack and just leading their defense and helping them maintain structure. So he really deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else? I'd have to throw the name Luka Modric out there, the South Korean goalkeeper as well. Haldorsen, the Icelandic keeper. Anyone want to elaborate on any of those names? I'm just throwing some ideas out right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some names off the top of my head. But yeah, what about Modric? I mean, for me, Croatia have been my team of the tournament so far. Right. I think if they carry on the way they have a serious chance of winning the cup, in my opinion.
Wow.
I've been really, obviously Modric has been the key player for them. He's their star man. He's been brilliant in midfield. Some of the goals he scored against, I can't remember if he scored 2 goals against Argentina or whatever, but the one he did score, what a brilliant goal.
Yeah.
Possibly my goal of the tournament so far, although the ones against Argentina yesterday for France were great as well. So, I mean, yeah, that's what I would say about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think with the goalkeepers this year, it's been interesting because, like De Gea, who's considered to be an elite keeper, has been very criticized. Argentina had a lot of problems in goal, but then you mentioned Haldorsen, who's pretty unheralded for Iceland, and then also Iran's Ali Reza Varenavad, who plays in the Persian League. Complete, relative nobody, but he had a fantastic tournament. And, I think we saw, I guess it was 2014, Keylor Navas was such a breakthrough star and ended up ending up in La Liga with Madrid and everything.
Right.
So I think there's a high possibility that some of these keepers, the Korean goalkeeper and then the Iranian one and also the Icelandic one, very well could end up, playing in one of the top European leagues pretty soon here, frankly.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, and you mentioned goalkeepers there, and Mexico's goalkeeper Ochoa has also been pretty solid. I remember in the 2014 World Cup, he was actually they were talking about making a statue for him, the amount of saves he was making, and in this World Cup again, he's pulling out wonder saves, and it's good for Mexico. They rightly deserve it, and Ochoa has also come up with some big moments and some big saves in those matches.
Right. Any concluding thoughts on the players specifically?
Not that there's probably more that I'm not thinking of that I haven't mentioned, but that's pretty much all I have to say, yeah.
Yeah, so let's see if these players can continue their momentum into the knockout stages. So, World Cup, first time with the VAR. What do we think? VAR, Steen?
Well, it certainly made things more interesting, hasn't it? I mean, what was it? We went something like 28, 29 games without a 0-0 draw. I think a lot of that is down to VAR and the penalty decisions that they get. They're called the tournament of penalties. We've had something like 25 or something, as opposed to like 13 in the last tournament or something like that. So, it's clearly, the impact's clearly showing, and it's clearly being used, which is at least good, because I think the problem other people have when VAR was used in the FA Cup last year was it wasn't being used when it should have been, and other than a couple of exceptions, it's being used here. I suppose you could probably consider that a bit of a downside as well, because referees, they know they can revalidate their decision for the technologies of things, so they're not as hesitant to call for decisions, as opposed to if they're, the rule is if they're not sure, they're not supposed to be able to give it, but now if they're not sure, they can just check the VAR. So, I don't know, I feel like overall I am for VAR, and I think overall we're definitely getting closer to getting it right. I definitely think it's working better here than it is in the likes of the FA Cup. But there are definitely still things that need working on, and obviously we're not going to be able to cover all human error, as we saw during the Spain-Iran game, where Iran got the penalty at the end, which shouldn't have been given, in my opinion. So yeah, there's definitely lots to work on, but I think we're taking a step in the right direction myself.
Yeah, I definitely think it's been fair, although obviously I think it makes it more advantageous for an attacking team, just because the penalties has been the biggest thing about it. But, I think at the same time, clearly the difference to me between effective VAR and ineffective VAR is the actual referee's behavior. Because if they delay or they decide 2 or 3 minutes after something has happened, all of a sudden they're going to review it and they're completely disrupting the game, then it really can be, disruptive momentum. But if they do it effectively and they just, they go and they check the call, they get it done, they move on, and the correct call is made, then it's actually great, because it avoids a lot more controversy than they otherwise would have.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Kishan?
Yeah, I think I like a lot of what's been said already. I think the timing needs to be a bit better. A lot of what people love about football is that the explosion of emotion after a goal, and if you kind of make people wait to feel the celebration, it can be a little bit, it can feel like the game is lagging a little bit, which is not what we love. But I always go back to the England games in the group stages, because, Harry Kane was held numerous times in Tunisia's, when he was playing against Tunisia, and the penalties I don't believe were given.
Yeah.
But against Panama, those penalties were given for holding. So I guess there will need to be a bit more consistency in terms of when VAR is implemented. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, but I think the main problem with VAR, more than the time issue, is the consistency with when it's used, or when VAR decisions are made, when they are able to overturn the ref's decisions. First and foremost, I credit FIFA and the VAR system for only having it for the 4 main aspects of the game, not just deliberating over every corner or yellow card or throw-in. I think that's quite good. Otherwise, we'd be having extremely long games. But the fact is that VARs need to be watching everything with pinpoint accuracy. I think corners is the main thing. And when this comes to the Premier League, it's going to be a huge shock to the teams, because, Premier League is one of the most physical leagues. People are always in the corner, the penalty area, 4 corners, little shove here and there will now be monitored. And that sort of unfair type of play will now be caught. But again, I think the main issue is consistency. I think VAR needs to take its time. Those Harry Kane penalties were inexcusable, really. I mean, they were blatant. I don't know how someone didn't see that, 2 arms around him with force. Those were quite obvious decisions. Same with, there have been some other decisions that have been made with regard to penalties. However, I do think offsides have been done correctly. Handballs need a bit of work. I think there was a handball in the Mexico game against Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a handball decision on Chicharito, which I personally saw that as a handball, but I guess the VAR saw that as more ball to hand. I think the rules need to be cleared up a little bit more on the whole ball to hand, intentional handball situation. But again, like I said, like you guys have said already, it's a work in progress, and it's coming together, and with a couple more years of tournaments, I think it will be soon a flawless system. Any concluding thoughts on VAR, lads?
Well, I just... Go ahead, sir.
Okay, go on, you go.
I was just going to say, I just think it's a relief to say that I honestly can't think of any team thought I'd been outright robbed, which is nice. I don't think there's been any particular call this tournament so far where a team's like, it's not like the Ireland-France handball. There's no accusation of corruption, at least.
Yeah.
Well, I was with the offside decisions. I mean, that's a lot more black and white. He's either past the last defender or he isn't. So VAR is definitely helpful for making decisions there. You can't call it anything but a benefit there because there's no objection whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or subjectivity, whatever you want to call it, whatsoever. It's very clear. So, but I mean, like you're right with the handballs and the fouls. In what constitutes a foul in the box, what isn't. There's a little nudge allowed. There needs to be if you're going to have VAR, there needs to be a clear setting of the rules and say, right, okay, if you see anything past this is a foul and has to be given, or is anything past this isn't, and you've got to let the game go on. So, I mean, that's true with refereeing anyway. It's not just for the technology, but particularly with the technology where you have other people who aren't necessarily referees and don't know the game as well, or who pay attention to the game as closely as referees need to. You will probably have to be a bit more clear with them than you will the officials themselves. But that's really my thoughts.
Yeah, agreed. So that's that on VAR. I guess the overall conclusion here is not perfect yet, but work in progress and soon to be very accurate. Let's move into the knockout games. Today we've got Spain taking on Russia, Denmark, Croatia. The other marquee games are Brazil, Mexico that we'll address, and we'll look at the England-Colombia tie as well. What are we saying for the Spain-Russia? Let's do a quick round of predictions and a brief justification, starting with Kishan. What do you make of it, mate?
Probably go with maybe 3-1. 3-1 for me.
Yeah. Any reason for Spain?
I think it's. I think Russia. They had a manageable group. I don't think they pulled out some. Don't get me wrong. They pulled out some really impressive results. And scored so many goals, and obviously they'll have the crowd behind them. But I think Spain are just different caliber. I think Spain will control the tempo of the match, and they will manage to. They will unlock that Russian defense. But I also think that Russia will score a goal. So yeah, for me, 3-1.
Yeah, George.
Yeah, I think Russia had a decent tournament. I mean, there was a lot of talk beforehand about the pressure was on them. A lot of people calling them the worst Russian side ever. And they did quite well in their group. They had some great results, albeit against not some great teams. But I think the fans will be really behind them, and I think the fact that they're the hosting nation and they're going to have a stadium full of their fans is really going to help them.
Yeah.
But I do think that Spain probably do have too much quality for them. So I'm going to say, I think I'll go 2-1 Spain. I do think Russia will get a goal and make a game of it, but I think Spain will, like you said, be able to unlock their defence.
Steen?
And I'll go 2 or 3-0 Spain. I just think that Russia doesn't have enough depth, frankly. They have some talented players like Golovin in the center and Akinfeev at goal. I mean, they're not a terrible team, but Spain just has a lot more depth. So I just think over the course of time, Spain is going to wear them down with a lot of physical play, and eventually they'll break through. They'll score a couple, and I don't know where the goals are going to come from for Russia, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm going to go with 2-1. I'll agree with George on this one. Similar mindset to Steen, that they will be able to unlock the defense and they will play a physical game, make the substitutions that will make the difference. But I guess Artem Zuba, if he's going to play, they've got a few aerial threats that could get a goal or steal a goal to make a bit of a game out of it from a set piece. Or, a penalty could swing in their favor. Denis Cheryshev been excellent this tournament. Is he suspended by any chance? Or just booked?
I don't think so. I don't think he's suspended.
Yeah, so I think he's had a great tournament. The crowd will be behind them. I do see Russia nicking a goal or two, but yeah, at the end of the day, Spain will triumph, in my opinion. Let's take a look at Brazil versus Mexico. Let's reverse the order. Steen, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think the last game for Mexico is going to be a sign of trouble for them, honestly. Despite beating Germany, which I think in hindsight maybe not as big of an accomplishment, given Korea did it. Then, they just really, I understand they didn't necessarily have everything to play for in the Sweden game, but they really got out hustled and outworked, and they were really pushed around. And I think playing a team like Brazil with as much talent as they have, they mess around on the ball a lot and they become kind of selfish with it from time to time, but they just have a lot of talent and power, and I just don't know if Mexico's side can keep up with that much speed.
Yeah. Score prediction?
I'll go with 2-1 Brazil.
Nice. George?
Yeah, I mean Brazil are obviously going to be the favourites, aren't they? They're always aiming to win the World Cup, and they've got a team of quality players in them. I do think Mexico. I think Mexico have been good this tournament. I've been impressed with them. Like you said, the Sweden game not so much. They sort of let themselves down a bit, but again, they didn't really have much to play for, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
Or at least not as much as Sweden did. But I think I can't. I think Mexico will give a bit of a game of it, like with Russia. But I think Brazil are a much more consistent side than Spain as well. Spain haven't been the best this tournament, and I mean Brazil have done some dodgy moments as well. But I think they've been a better team overall. So I said 2-1 for Spain and Russia. I think I'm going to go 3-1 for this game.
Nice. Kishan?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Mexico, the Germany match was definitely, obviously, their highlight of the tournament so far, and they counterattack with such speed there, So Brazil will need to be careful not to overcommit their players forward. They love their flair game. They love the flicks and tricks and everything. So they'll need to be careful of that. But I have to agree that I think Brazil will come out on top. Probably a 2-1. And, probably 2-1.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's going to go into extra time and perhaps even penalties, where I really don't know the winner. I think it will be a 1-1 draw, Mexico looking extremely dangerous on the counterattack. Lozano, Chicharito, and Carlos Vela on the right, all extremely lethal. And it's just one mistake in the Mexican penalty area for them to unleash those three and get forward. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. Actually, I'll predict an upset. I go Mexico to win this one on penalties. England, Colombia, probably the game that I and most other fans are excited for. Let's have George. Why don't you start with this one, being English?
Yeah, well, I don't know if excited is as much the word for me as I am absolutely terrified. But no, I think I've been impressed. I've been impressed with England so far. I think everyone has. Yeah. I've particularly been impressed with Gareth Southgate. Southgate sounds like a man who wants to win the World Cup. He's taking the group very seriously. He's not taking anything for granted. And he's approaching the Colombia game in the exact same way. He knows they're a good side. He knows they're going to be tough to beat. We've got to be at our best. I think that attitude is going to help the team a lot. And particularly, he also said in the recent press conference that they've connected a lot more with the fans. That they're a lot closer to the England with the country than it happened in a long time. It's in the longest time I can remember since. So I think that's definitely going to help as well. The fact that they know they have the backing in the country and all the fans will help them a lot. I think the team spirit in general is just a lot closer together. And we've just generally got a good squad as well. Not the best, but we've got players like Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, who on their day, can do amazing things, can beat absolutely anyone. We've seen that in the Premier League. Yeah. So, but then of course Colombia are a great side as well. You could say the same thing about them, in many cases. James Rodriguez was recently, the injury to him was said it wouldn't be quite as bad, maybe not quite as bad as they initially thought, which that could definitely be a problem for us. But I really don't know how to call this one. I genuinely think anything could happen. If we do get through, I think we've got a really good chance in the quarterfinals because it's either Sweden or Switzerland who we'll play, and I definitely think if we can beat Colombia, we can beat those two, or either of those two. So I think I'm going to go the same as Shiven for the Mexico-Brazil game. I'm going to say 1-1, and I know we always lose on penalties, but I think I've got to say England win on penalties, haven't I? Because I think it's going to be 1-1 after extra time, and I've got to back my country. And I think hopefully, finally, we can actually break the curse and have a bit of pride in a shootout for once.
Yeah, nice. Kishan, what do you make?
Like a lot of what was just said. What an exciting tie, but also a nerve-wracking one. You have to say that Colombia, they have so many talented players. Rodriguez, Cuadrado, Falcao. These are all threats for England. But the other thing is with England, we have player in Harry Kane. He can come up with a goal at any time. He can score from outside the box. He can score from set piece. Whatever it is, we always have a chance if you've got Harry Kane on the pitch. And as was also said, players like Raheem Sterling and even Dele Alli, we haven't seen the best of them yet. So if they can come alive, then I don't see why England can't come through this one. Yeah, so for me, it's going to be tight for sure. I would say perhaps 1-0 England, maybe 2-1. 2-1. Go 2-1.
Nice. Steen?
And I would say this game is really about a matter of which version of these teams show up, because we all know that Colombia has a team that can beat almost anybody with the talent they have, and England frankly does too, but they're not always consistently showing that level.
Yeah.
So I think the England defense is going to be the key. John Stones had a really good tournament. I think in general their whole back line's been pretty consistent. Like even against Belgium, they only give it with the one goal. So it's really not a bad showing against a team that has such a great attack in the other games. So I think they're going to limit the Colombian chances, and for that reason alone, I'll go England either 1-0 or 2-1, something like that.
Yeah, nice. So for this final game, George, I'll have to actually disagree with you on the fact that Gareth Southgate's taken the group extremely seriously, especially after the performance against Belgium, and more significantly, the team that he put out. I don't think he took that game seriously at all, and I think that has tended to backfire on him. So I'd have to disagree with you there, as he didn't really take the game seriously. The whole paradox of win-lose was on his mind. So I think he got a bit confused there, and the players didn't look fired up for it. So I'm going to have to disagree. I think Gareth Southgate hasn't been the manager that I've wanted. I think he's got the team fired up. I think he's put out some good tactics. But against the Belgium game, I think that was a very underwhelming performance and poor mentality amongst the players.
Well, and I can kind of see where you're coming from. The thing of the matter is, by the time we played the Belgium match, we had already qualified. So, and people would have argued it would have been better to win the group and get the morale up. But at the same time, if we'd won that group, we would have had Brazil in the quarterfinals potentially.
Let's
face it, if you're looking at this objectively, you do not want to face Brazil before the final. You don't want to face Brazil until leave it as late as you can. So no. I think I get what you mean in terms of not taking that game as seriously. I mainly meant the Tunisia and Panama games because let's face it, they're not the greatest sides in the world.
Yeah, correct.
He wasn't talking about how it's guaranteed that we're going to walk through it, and I think the performances showed that. All right, Tunisia was a bit dodgy, but we weren't held by the referee. Yeah. Not pinning it down to him, of course. We could have done a bit better, but we got through it is the important thing. Yeah. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, we had a relatively decent group last World Cup, and we couldn't qualify either. We lost both our opening games and went straight out. So we weren't taking it seriously. This time we have taken it seriously. We're definitely going to be taking this tie seriously. I think I think that's why he put a weakened side against Belgium. He knew at the end of the day, win or lose, it wasn't necessarily the end of the world. We were still going to go through, and he had an eye on the teams, whoever we were going to be playing, the likes of Colombia, the likes of Japan. And he's looking at the fact we're going to need a full-strength team to beat either of those. So we need to make sure that the likes of our Harry Kanes are going to be fit for that match. And I think he made the right decision overall. So, you can disagree with some of his decisions. That's perfectly fine. But to say he wasn't taking the whole tournament seriously, I don't. Maybe the Belgium game, fair enough. But I think he had a reason not to take that seriously because you have to look again. I think he wants to win the World Cup with England. So you have to look at the overall picture there, and I think in terms of from that perspective, I think he's made the right call personally.
Yeah, but I think that's just basic expectation, mate. It's the World Cup. I mean, who's not going to take it seriously? Who's not going to want to fire up the players with passion? Iran want to win the World Cup. Iran manager's probably saying there, let's go out and win it. He's taking the cup seriously. I mean, every team is taking it seriously, so I think that's just the expectation. Nothing really to be impressed by. But I am impressed by the fact that he's been able to think on his feet. He's been able to make appropriate changes. He's been able to completely tear Panama apart, which I didn't think that was like an England-like thing to do. I thought we'd edge past them 1-0, 2-1 something. But to completely tear them up was excellent. Tear them open with some intricate passes, intricate football. It was a great display, so I do credit him on that front. With regard to the Colombia game, I think we should get through this one. And I'm going to go with a relatively comfortable 3-0 on this one. I think, again, we've got Harry Kane, we've got bags of talent. Southgate, again, he'll fire up the players. Colombia have been a bit dodgy, have not been able to find their first team. James Rodriguez been a bit off. Cuadrado not been at his very best. Falcao not really getting the goals. But again, like Steen said, it's going to be which version of each team turn up. That will be the deciding factor. But if we can have Harry Kane on his game, Raheem Sterling being clinical, Dele Alli, and a solid back line. I think a 3-0 or a 2-0 at least should be feasible for the Three Lions. So, with that said, do we have any concluding thoughts on the World Cup so far and what's to come?
Well, it's been an exciting tournament so far. I just can't wait to see what happens next. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but that's half the fun of it.
Yeah, of course, well said.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on that, I think that's really been the story of the tournament to me. No matter who wins, I think for the most part, at least the top 15, 16 teams have actually been very balanced. You can make a case for probably 8 different teams could win it right now.
Yeah.
Which is not typical. It's usually, 3 or 4 really top teams and then everybody else. So I think the parity has been great, and just, credit to some of the, more surprising nations like your Croatias and your Japans just, competing really hard and implementing a game plan that allows them to compete. I don't think anybody would argue that, Belgium or Croatia are necessarily better than Brazil, traditionally speaking, but I think those teams have as much of a good a chance of winning the cup as Brazil does. Yeah. So that tells you a lot.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, and I'd say, with Messi and Ronaldo both going out of the tournament at, in such an early stage, it's really an opportunity for some players to stamp their mark on the tournament. I think we all loved in 2014 when Rodriguez, he was getting all the goals. He brought Colombia through to the later stages of the tournament. And we saw Mbappe the other day, didn't we? Bursting across the field against Argentina, and that was just, wondrous to behold. So I'm looking forward to seeing who can really, take these matches by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in and watching the Extra Time Talk podcast. Please be sure to drop your predictions for who's going to win the World Cup down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you.